Good morning. Welcome to the muscular system. So the muscular system is the system of muscles that produces movement both inside the body and the limbs. All the muscles contract or shorten, which causes movement. Now there are three types of muscle tissue. You have smooth, you have cardiac, and you have skeletal. Smooth muscle fibers are spindle-shaped, each with a single nucleus. There are no striations. Contraction of smooth muscle is involuntary, which means we don't have to think about it. Smooth muscle is located in the walls of the hollow organs of our body and in the blood vessels themselves. Cardiac muscle forms the heart wall. Its fibers are generally uninucleated, striated, tubular, and branched. Uninucleated meaning they only have one nucleus. Cardiac fibers relax completely between contractions, and this prevents fatigue. Intercalated discs connect the cardiac muscle cells, and the skeletal muscle fibers are tubular, multinucleated, meaning more than one, and striated. Skeletal muscle contraction is voluntary. If I want to lift my arm, I think about it and lift it. The fibers run the length of the muscle. So skeletal muscles are attached to the skeleton, obviously by their name, and their contraction causes the movement of the bones at the joint. Just like that. Skeletal muscles perform many functions. These include support of the body, movement of the bones and body structures. They maintain a constant body temperature. They help with movement of fluids in the cardiovascular and lymphatic vessels, and protection of internal organs and stabilization of the joints. Now, the basic structure of these, you have a whole muscle which contains bundles of skeletal muscle fibers we call fascicles. Within a fascicle, each fiber is surrounded by connective tissue, and the fascicle itself is also surrounded by connective tissue. Muscles are covered with fascia, which is a type of connective tissue that extends beyond the muscle and becomes its tendon, which is anchoring the muscle to the bone. Bursa are found between the tendons and bones, and as we said in our last lecture, that's the cushion. Skeletal muscles usually work in pairs. So the origin of the muscle is at the end attaching to an immovable bone, such as right here, the muscle that attaches right here. The insertion of a muscle is at the end, which attaches to a movable bone, which is right in here, like right in there. It's not the only one. One muscle is the antagonist or the prime mover and does most of the work for any particular movement. The synergist assists the agonist and makes its action more effective. Now, the agonists are muscles that act opposite to a prime mover. The facial muscles produce facial expressions that demonstrate emotions and the mood of the person. So, in other words, smile, sad, frown. There are, just here alone in this area, to create one kiss, you use multitudes of muscles. Skeletal muscles are named according to their size, their shape, their location, the direction the fibers are going, whether they're erect or whether they're going at an angle, which is oblique. They where they attach, the number of attachments they have, or the action that they perform. The alternating dark and light bands give the skeletal muscle a striated appearance. These bands are due to the arrangements of myofilaments in the muscle fiber. A muscle fiber is a cell containing cellular components. Sarcolemma is the plasma membrane of muscle fiber, and it forms the T-tubules involved in muscle contraction. The T-tubules convey impulses that cause calcium ions to be released from the sarcoplasmic reticulum. The sarcoplasm is the cytoplasm of the muscle fiber, and it contains the organelles. The sarcoplasmic reticulum surrounds the myofibrils and stores calcium ions. And remember, we need calcium for good, strong bones. The sarcolemma encases the myofibrils, and these are the contractile portion of the muscle fibers. Glycogen provides stored energy for the muscle contraction. You have the red pigment, which is myoglobin. It binds oxygen until it's needed for the muscle to contract. And if you have ever been working out or walking for a long time and you get this burn in your legs, what's happened is you've used up most of the oxygen. And that's why we take a time to sit down, relax, and breathe. If you're running, you're breathing faster, trying to get more oxygen in. The fibrils and the sarcomeres. Fibrils are cylindrical structures that run the entire length of the muscle fiber. They are composed of myofilaments that are responsible for muscle contraction. So there are two types. You have myosin, which are thick, and actin, which are thin. The myofibrils are further divided into sarcomeres, which reduces the muscle contraction. There's a sliding filament model. So when a nervous impulse reaches a muscle fiber, the sarcoplasmic reticulum releases its stored calcium, and the fiber contracts. The myosin filaments have what we call cross bridges that pull on the actin filaments, causing them to slide past each other. The sliding filament model, which you'll see in your book, shows that the filaments do not change in length as the sarcomere shortens. The region where a motor neuron contracts a muscle fiber, we call that the neuromuscular junction. The motor nerve fiber expands into a synaptic end bulb and approaches a muscle fiber. Now, when the nerve impulse travels down the neuron, the synaptic vesicles storing a neurotransmitter, acetylcholine, move to the end of the bulb and release acetylcholine into the synaptic cleft. And the muscle fiber receives the neurotransmitter at the receptor sites, and the sarcolemma generates impulses that travel over the sarcolemma to the T-tubules and the sarcoplasmic reticulum. Then stored calcium is released to the cell. It triggers a contraction. The threads of tropomyosin wind around an actin filament, and troponin occurs at the intervals along the threads. When the calcium ions get released from the sarcoplasmic reticulum, they combine with the troponin, and this causes tropomyosin threads to shift their position along the actin, and it exposes the myosin binding sites. At this point, the myosin can now bind with the actin. Muscle tone. We haven't talked about that yet. Muscle tone is the continuous partial contraction of a muscle. The muscle is firm and solid. The muscle tone is the desirable effect of exercise. So when we exercise, what we're trying to achieve is muscle tone, good muscle tone, so that even when we're not exercising, we can see the tone of the muscle. Energy is used for muscle contraction. They can use various sources of fuel. They can also produce the ATP needed for muscle contraction. And if you remember, ATP is what we use for energy to break down. A muscle's got 4 possible energy sources. 2 of them are glycogen and fat. And 2 of these are required from blood, glucose and plasma fatty acids. Muscle cells store limited amounts of ATP. However, once stored, it has to be used up. Cells have 3 ways to produce more by the creatine phosphate pathway, fermentation, and cellular respiration. So the creatine phosphate pathway is the simplest and fastest to produce ATP. It's creatine phosphates converted to creatine, then a conversion to, with a conversion of ADP to ATP. The fermentation produces 2 ATP molecules from the breakdown of glucose to lactate anaerobically. That means without air, without oxygen. This passageway begins with glycogen. Formation of lactate is noticeable because it produces muscle aches and fatigue upon exercise. Your muscles also have cellular respiration. It's the slowest and most efficient way to produce ATP. It is aerobic, means oxygen is supplied by the respiratory system. The myoglobin is also delivered directly to the mitochondria. It can make use of glucose from the breakdown of the glycogen stored in the muscle and glucose taken up from the blood and fatty acids. We have fast twitch and slow twitch muscle fibers. Fast twitch fibers tend to be anaerobic and seem to be designed for strength because of their motor units containing many fibers. They're light in color because they have fewer mitochondria, little or no myoglobin, and fewer blood vessels than slow switch fibers. They depend on anaerobic energy, causing them to accumulate lactate and to tire easily. These fibers provide explosions of energy, just quick bursts of energy. Slow twitch fibers are a steadier tug and more durable, despite having more units with smaller numbers of fibers. Now, these fibers produce most of their energy aerobically using oxygen. They have many mitochondria and are dark in color because of the myoglobin that they contain. Uh, they also contain a reserve of glycogen and fat for prolonged production of ATP when there's oxygen present. Um, so there are some muscular disorders that are common, and some are life-threatening. Common, we have spasms, which involve contractions that may cause pain, cramps, long, painful spasms. We can have a strain, which is an overstretching of muscle, a sprain, twisting of a joint, which leads to swelling and injury, not just of the muscle, but also the ligaments, the tendons, the blood vessels, and the nerves. We have diseases, myalgia, which refers to muscle or muscular pain. It could be accompanied with myositis, inflammation of the muscles. Fibromyalgia is a chronic condition that cause symptoms such as pain, tenderness, and stiffness of the muscles. We have no idea why. Muscular dystrophy, it's an autoimmune chronic disease characterized by muscles that are weak and easily fatigued. It results from the immune system's attack on the neuromuscular junctions so that stimuli aren't transmitted from motor neurons to the muscle fibers themselves. It's progressive degeneration and weakening of muscles. Duchenne muscular dystrophy, it's caused by the lack of protein called dystrophin, and it's a disorder linked to the X chromosome. Myasthenia gravis, an autoimmune disease characterized by muscle weakness that especially affects the muscles of the eyelids, face, neck, and extremities. Muscle cancer, sarcomas are cancers that arise in muscles or connective tissue. Now, even with all this, we have to have some homeostasis. Both the muscular and skeletal systems contribute to homeostasis. They often work together to do this. The skeletal and muscular systems work together to enable body movement. Skeletal plays an important part just by protecting the soft internal organs, and the muscular system pads the bones and the tendons and bursa, reinforced cushioning joints. And also a very important thing to remember before I end is that the muscles help maintain body temperature. They contribute to our body temperature. Have you ever been outside and you get those we call them chill bumps or goose pimples, or chill bumps and goose pimples are a little different. One happens when we're scared, and another one happens when it's cold. But you get the chill bumps and you start shivering. That's your muscular system trying to heat you up. All right, that's the end of this lecture. Study, do your work, and please this week do your work on time, because I will not be opening anything up for late work. You can give me the late work, but I won't be opening anything up so you can post it, because I've given you 2 weeks to get everything caught up, and many of you haven't taken advantage of that, and I just can't do it anymore. So post on time, get your work done in both lab and theory. Have a good day.